The potential to be one of the greatest economic opportunities of this generation. That's how a venture capital fund launched by OTR-based Lightship Capital is being described. It's the largest ever fund dedicated to investing in minority-led startups in the Midwest. And Courier publisher Jamie Smith talked to the woman who spearheaded it all, Candace Matthews-Brackeen.
Candace, I want to thank you for being on the show with us today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
We just heard Kyla say that Lightship Capital launched the largest ever fund dedicated to Midwest minority-led startups. But before we get into that fund, can you tell our viewers a little bit about what Lightship does? What's your mission?
So we launched Lightship Capital to kind of deal with this issue of funding not going to women and minority founders. So Lightship Capital is a $50 million fund dedicated to funding companies here in the Midwest that are led by Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+, and the disabled. And yeah, it's the largest fund ever raised by a Black woman, first-time fund by a Black woman here in the United States, and the largest here in the Midwest, dedicated specifically to this demographic.
You know, that's incredible. You know, I read recently that systemic racism has led that majority of venture capital investment has been allocated to white males. I'm assuming that's kind of what you're trying to change, right?
Absolutely. So less than 3% of VCs, so venture capitalists, are people of color. And less than 1% of venture capital goes to a company that's led by an African American. So if you think about the number of African Americans or Black people here in the United States, there's a huge disparity there. If you look at information that's been put out by groups like the Angel Capital Association, women invest in other women. So if you look at a woman's portfolio in Angel Capital, 70% of their portfolio will have women in it, women in leadership. So, you know, my theory and my thesis is that the more Black-led funds or the more funds led by people of color, the more likely they are to kind of eliminate that systemic racism or implicit bias, and we'll have more companies get funded long-term, because I think that that could be the great equalizer.
Yeah, that's awesome. What kind of, ventures do you think this fund are going to support? I mean, is there any kind of magical, ventures out there that you guys are looking for, or what do you think this is going to help?
So we love companies with defensible IP. So companies that have really worked through a patent process, et cetera. But we're looking for consumer packaged goods and services, e-commerce companies, artificial intelligence, sustainability companies, and healthcare. So all of those things are sectors that we're really good at, not only here in Cincinnati, especially the CPG, but throughout the Midwest.
Yeah. You know, I've heard you speak several times, and I walk away every time just impressed with your overall vision of what needs to happen. And, these times more than ever, we need people like you that are leading the cause and that are not just using the words, but putting your words to action. So since we kind of have a good audience here, what would you tell our audience needs to change to make companies like yours and these companies that you guys are trying to fund more successful in Cincinnati?
Wow. I would say that it's time to start putting our money and moving it away from just strictly philanthropy, that folks of color deserve equal levels of investment. We can't move beyond where we are without having an actual financial investment into companies, be that into brick and mortar companies, be that into venture backable companies, whether it's working capital or venture capital. We need to see equal levels of investment, not just in the dealing with poverty issues that we have here in the local area, or issues with education. We kind of need to run the whole gamut of things so that we have a more equitable society.
That's awesome. As a father of a 23-year-old daughter just out of college and grad school, she's living in New York. I am happy to see people like you leading in Cincinnati, because I think it's going to take them to see, it's going to take people to see people like themselves leading companies in order for us to have more of them, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much for everything you're doing to this region. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being on our show. And I can't wait to continue to follow you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today.
All right. Thanks a lot.